So nobody's at the microphone?
How'd you like that?
All right.
Brown sugar and candy.
I wasn't always got that.
Oh, this is so nice. Some people make that. Well, it's because it is.
So who's that?
I just drew a blank and it's like that.
You don't remember?
She and her husband are.
Welcome to the Rotary Club of York. We are a people of action committed to service above self and honoring the four-way test. If you haven't already done so, please take a moment to silence your cell phones. Cal Weary will lead us in our opening song, America the Beautiful, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. And Dave Hogue will offer the invocation, and Stephen Martinez will introduce our visitors.
Rotarians, join me. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of gray, for purple mountains' majesty above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Not the pledge. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Cal. Let's give thanks. Our God, we come before you today thankful that you reveal yourself to us through the beauty and magnificence of spring, and also, as of yesterday, through the lushness and recreation of summer. We thank you also for the simple pleasures you've provided that our lives may enjoy happy variety. We're grateful for your guidance in Proverbs 25 and elsewhere regarding sweets, that we may enjoy them, just not to excess. Thank you for giving us small treats that bring a smile to the faces of young and old alike. We pray for your grace and mercy to be seen and felt in Ukraine and in other locations where war tears lives apart. We pray that you bless Rotary with growth and success in serving others as the world emerges from the ravages of COVID. We thank you for the food you've provided us today. We ask your blessing on it and on those who prepared it and served it to us today. Amen.
Okay, so I am pleased to have the honor of introducing our guests for today. My friend Jonah Geller's in the room today, and my goal is to see if I can't pronounce these names just a little better than Jonah would. So we'll see if I can do anything. Yeah, you got this, guys. Don't worry, I've been practicing. Okay, so guests, when I say your name, you have to stand up, you have to remain standing, and then President Jackie is going to come up and give you a formal welcome. All right. Here we go. Greg Staub, District Governor. Lettuce Brown, guest of Tom Barton. Latisse, thank you. I said better than Jonah. The bar is down here. I'm sorry, Latisse. Latisse Brown, guest of Tom Barton. Tom Calty-Giron, guest of Jim Anderson. Hunter Commons, who is the student president of the Impact Fund, guest of the club. Ellen Fryerick, guest of past president Gordon Fryerick. Kirian Gross, guest of CJ Gross. Salisa Hagan, guest of our speaker. Scott Krauser, guest of past president Gordon Fryerick. John Langle, guest of Austin Shank. John Lloyd and Mary Lyons, guest of Leanne Wilson. Kathy Penzola, Sarah Reinrich, Reinecker, yep. Gina Trimmer, all guest of the club. And then we have Maddie Trimmer, who's a student president of the Impact Foundation, guest of the club. Darnell Williams, guest of Austin Shank, and Bill Yanovich, guest of our speaker. It's not bad, better than.
I think we're going to have to start the Visitor Introduction Academy. We have some work to do on helping people understand how to this. Bill, I'm really sorry about that pronunciation of your last name. Sorry about a lot of you. Sorry about Sarah. Ooh, sorry about that. You know who you are. I am so happy to see your faces. I'm so happy that you're here today for this incredible, robust program we're about to experience. It's great to see a room full of all of you. I hope that you'll return often to see and be a part of our great programs. Fellow Rotarians, please help me welcome our visitors. The Communications Committee will meet on Tuesday, June 28th at 2:30 at First Post. Volunteers are needed to help with our Get Hooked on Fishing program for city youth this summer at Kiwanis Lake. If you're interested, please contact Ashley Etzweiler. And I hope you've been out scouting for great players to build our team. During June and July, each time a member brings a guest to a meeting, they'll be entered into a drawing for a pair of tickets to your choice of a Philadelphia home football game, a Baltimore Ravens home game, or a Penn State home game. Tickets have been generously donated by Fox 43, and thank you, Chris Toff. The Youth Leadership Committee sponsored 8 York County students previously honored as Students of the Month to attend RILA, the District 7390 Rotary Youth Leadership Program held last week at Messiah College. We plan to host these students this summer at a club meeting so you'll get to meet them again in person and hear about their experience at RILA. Just a reminder to those of you who are attending the Revs game tonight with our friends from the Lancaster Rotary Club, if you would like a special behind the scenes tour, you'll need to meet at the Brooks Robinson statue in front of the gates at 5:15, and Eric Menser will lead that tour. However, we're following the weather forecast carefully, and they are calling for severe thunderstorms and rain. So there is a possibility that the game may be postponed, and the hope would be that we could reschedule it as a fellowship event with our friends in Lancaster. So if you don't hear from Rob or me, then we'll see you at the game tonight. However, if it is postponed, we'll be sure to get in touch with you before the game starts. Okay. And now our member moment. Elaine Bonneau grew up in Cincinnati, the youngest in a family of 6 children. Her entrepreneurial spirit was ingrained in her as both parents were self-starters with big dreams. Her father owned and operated a successful commercial vehicle servicing business, and her mother's experience as an inner-city private school teacher helped her start the Martin Luther King Jr. Academy, where Elaine ultimately graduated. When deciding on college, Elaine visited the campus of Denison University, which made her mother very happy, hoping her youngest would stay in Ohio. But seeking to experience life beyond her home state, she followed in her sister's footsteps and went to Johns Hopkins. Elaine met her husband, Gene, in college, and they've been married for 24 years. Early in their careers, they lived outside of Philadelphia and commuted to Baltimore and Washington during the week until one day, Gene mentioned that he'd heard New Freedom was a very nice place to live and an easy commute to Baltimore, to which Elaine responded, "Where's New Freedom?" But once she saw it, she fell in love and knew it was home, a community of neighbors and friends. They adopted their beloved pit bull mix Tucker from the SPCA of York County. And if Elaine isn't cheering Gene on in a marathon, they're hiking with their beloved Tuxie. After working for a successful boutique ad agency in Baltimore, she saw the need to tell the stories of the growing Latinx community and launched a bilingual magazine, even though she didn't speak the language. She said it was the most exhilarating, immersive leap of faith, and it felt like jumping off the diving board into the best food, the best music, and the best dance. It enabled her to understand people's different perspectives outside of her own biases. When print media declined during the recession, she started Bonneau and Associates and later accepted an opportunity with Downtown Inc. in an effort to become actively invested in the York community. She eventually returned to her marketing and PR roots, applying much of what she learned in helping her clients become better storytellers, building a bridge to market their business and build their brand. She had been invited as a guest to Rotary by Silas Chamberlain, and one time she saw Rotarians planting trees in downtown York on Earth Day and noticed them working side by side, happy and cheerfully chatting about Rotary. She recognized presidents and CEOs and realized they weren't about titles, they were about action. She decided that when the time was right, she'd join the club. So when Jules Tolbert proposed her for membership this year, she said yes. She's making new connections and deepening existing relationships. She considers the weekly meetings a priority and says it's wonderful to be welcomed and embraced. She's active on the Idea Committee and Rotary grants and is looking forward to doing more, including planting some trees. Elaine, we are glad you said yes to Rotary, and we can't wait to see what you'll do next. Welcome. And now Dee Baker with the fundraising committee update.
Hi, everyone. Today, I want to ask all of you to mark your calendars. Okay, so September 12th, Monday, we will have our annual charity event here. And its proceeds will benefit our new community engagement center that Commissioner Muldrow told us about, that he's doing in partnership with the city of York. Be a safe and structured space for the kids in the city to go and learn and grow and blossom. So the two main priorities for us this year in this event is to make sure it's a really fun day. Everybody's going to want to be there, and that we have the biggest impact that we can have to raise money for this really inspiring program. So we've made a couple changes. We've added cornhole. So there's no excuse. You can't say, I'm not good at golf. Everybody can throw a beanbag against a piece of wood. So there's golf, there's tennis, there's cornhole, and there's croquet. And if you don't want to do any of that, just come and have a fabulous dinner with us that evening. The other thing that we've done is shorten the flow of activities a little bit, so things will go smoothly, quickly, and you'll get home to your family sooner. But the other exciting thing that I want to announce, and I'm just thrilled, is that we created a new level of sponsorship, the presenting sponsorship, in order to raise more money for the City of Youth kids, or the City of York's kids. And we thought maybe we would have one company among all of you rise up to that challenge. Instead, in true Rotarian fashion, we had two companies rise up. And I'm not sure if Jeff Hamill or Chris Toff are here today, but I'd like to introduce our two presenting sponsors that are going to share that platform and have both given that top level of dollars to start us off towards our $45,000 goal with $13,000 before we even got started. So let's give both North Industrial Chemical and Fox 43 a great big thank you for that. They've set the stage for us all to step up and do good by our youth. Over the next few weeks, other committee members will be talking about the events, and also Commissioner Muldrow will be back with a youth member to talk about what this project is going to mean to the kids. So stay tuned.
Thank you, Dee, and thank you to your committee. You're going to be hearing a lot more about that in the coming weeks and months, but I hope to see all of you there in September. I know it's going to be a fabulous and successful event. And now past President Jody Keller with a Service Above Self Award.
I don't know about you, but President Jackie seems actually happier than she usually does. And I'm thinking because her presidentship is coming to a close pretty soon. The other thing I'll just mention is I got some of the blueberry pie on my notes, so I may have some problem. So just bear with me. On behalf of the Service Above Self Committee, we're recognizing a grassroots community organization run completely by volunteers. And this is the York Suburban Impact Foundation, and specifically their Impact Closet program. The Impact Foundation was founded in 2015 as a student-led committee of York Suburban Education Foundation in response to the growing needs of district students and their families. From 2005 to 2015, the percentage of York Suburban students qualifying for the free and reduced lunch program increased from 12 to 35%. The Impact Foundation started with a $5,000 grant from the York County Community Foundation in 2015 to build 6 impact closets in each building. The students built and stocked the closets with necessities like clothing, snacks, school supplies, shoes, and toiletries. In 2017, the Impact Foundation partnered with Luther Memorial Church located next to the high school. The church provided the workspace so the Impact Foundation could operate a weekend food backpack program. The IF high school students would walk to the church weekly to prepare and deliver 75 food backpacks to the schools that were distributed by staff. In response to the pandemic in March 2020, Sarah Reinecker, Kathy Pinzola, and Gina Trimmer collaborated with York Suburban Administration to help the IF high school students transition the weekend backpack room into a food pantry. From March to May 2020, IF was reaching 6 to 10 families per week, but by September 2020, they were reaching, September 2020, they were distributing 40 pounds of food per family and household necessities like laundry detergent and shampoo reaching 20 to 30 families per week. And currently they're serving 40 to 50 families per week. Kathy Pinzola qualified the food pantry as a serve-safe facility through the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank. A key component for sustaining the necessary stock was including our community in the process. One of the methods to do that was through regular neighborhood collection drives. Students establish drop-off locations in neighborhoods and send regular communication of the project needed and the products needed, and this is year-round. The Farquhar Estates neighborhood, where a number of you I know live, where Kathy Pinzola and Sarah Reinecker live, was the beta test. It is currently operating this program now in 8 York suburban neighborhoods. In 2021, it expanded the neighborhood reach to include furniture and bedding. These neighborhood drives are held year-long with a core of volunteers who support their neighbors. This is truly neighbors helping neighbors. The Impact Foundation's many activities exemplify neighbors helping neighbors and provide service above self daily. So we are very, very pleased to hear from briefly Sarah and Kathy, who are accepting the Service Above Self Award in honor of the Impact Foundation.
Thank you so much. On behalf of Kathy, Matt Brillhart, who is one of your fellow Rotarians and board president of the York Suburban Education Foundation, the YSEF board and the student-led Impact Foundation volunteers, thank you so much to Jody, the Service Above Self Committee, and the Rotary Club of York. I'd also like to recognize long-standing school board member Ellen Fryrick. Thank you for being here, Ellen. And our newly appointed Superintendent Scott Krauser. Scott has always been a huge supporter of the Impact Foundation and the York Suburban Education Foundation, but during the pandemic, when we were inventing the food pantry on the fly, Scott was an invaluable supporter. This award is meaningful to us because it represents 3 core tenets: consistency, community, and leadership. When we started the Impact Foundation in 2015, we had 2 goals: to teach students about nonprofit service and to engage them in the actual work of their community. Hunter Cummings, IF's incoming student president, and Maddie Trimmer, IF's incoming secretary, are here today representing over 250 students that have volunteered their time since the Impact Foundation's inception. They represent the consistency of the volunteer core that it takes year after year to grow and be partners in problem solving. The specific parameters of today's award speaks to a community of neighbors, week after week, taking the time to add a few items to their grocery list. Those few items add up to a consistent process of sustainability to help more kids, more families, year after year. And as we know, none of this is possible without leadership. Leaders that give of themselves to build community. Leaders that have the skill set to formulate consistency. Kathy and I may have been involved from the beginning, but since 2019, we've had the great fortune to work under the most selfless, hardworking volunteer boss I have ever encountered. And that's saying a lot because I volunteered my life away for the past 30 years, so I know a lot about volunteering. Gina Trimmer, please stand up so we can all recognize your service above self too. Thank you so much. If you're interested in learning more, we have a recent annual report on each of the tables. And you can also visit ysef.org to learn more about the extent of what our organization does. Jody, thank you so, so much.
Thank you, Sarah. And President Jackie is presenting you with the awards and a check for the York Suburban Education Foundation.
It truly is neighbors helping neighbors. So wonderful to have great news in our community and great to see students so actively engaged in this as well. Thank you for bringing this great news to us. And again, congratulations and thank you for all you're doing. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce our district governor, Greg Staub, along with Bill Hartman with some very special Paul Harris recognitions.
Thank you very much, President Jackie. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. It's always a pleasure to have a district governor attend one of our meetings, and it's always a pleasure to have District Governor Greg Staub with us at one of our meetings. Today, it's a special pleasure for several reasons. First of all, District Governor Greg will be handing out 6 outstanding true Rotarians their new pins, signifying a higher level of giving achievement. Number 2, District Governor Greg will be awarding our club's 7th Paul Harris Society member with their official certificate. And number 3 is very selfish on my part, because I think once in a while, everybody needs to have the opportunity to show off and brag. And today, Greg, if you would indulge us, I would like to brag a little bit about this club and how well they have embraced and supported the Rotary Foundation, and why I think they should be considered the star of the show of the Rotary Foundation within your district. First of all, we had a great year last year with our annual fund. We gave a total of $48,500 last year, which was the highest we had given to the annual fund. Yeah, wasn't that great? It's even greater that we're beating it this year. We have so far generated $49,900 for the annual fund, exceeding what we did last year. So another great year. The other thing that's really interesting, and this really shows how well you have embraced the foundation, and that is our per capita giving. Our per capita giving is what the average of each Rotarian member gives to the campaign. And what's interesting is if you look at the size of the clubs that make up our district, the larger the club, the harder it is to have a high per capita giving. We are the largest club in the district, and our per capita giving is $183 per member, compared to an average for the district of $139 per member. So that's pretty significant as well. Lastly, and this will be the last thing I brag about, okay? We have right now the highest number of Paul Harris Society eligible members we've ever had. We have 18. Remember the last time I was up here, I was elated that we had 15. We today have 18 Paul Harris Society eligible members, which means we have 18 people who have given $1,000 this year. Now, all you have to do to join the Paul Harris Society is agree to do that every year, which we have 7 people who have done that. So I think District Governor Greg, this is a club that has done a remarkable job and is proud to have done so. Okay, now we have some outstanding true Rotarians that we are going to recognize for advancing a Paul Harris level. And the first is Jane Davis. And Jane, we're going to recognize her virtually because she couldn't be there. Hi, Jane. How are you doing? Can you hear us? I think you're muted, Jane. In any event, congratulations, Jane, on achieving Paul Harris Fellow +1. We really appreciate your support. Thank you very much for joining us virtually, since you couldn't be here in person. Next, we have Doug Hevner, who's also getting his Paul Harris +1. Is Doug here today? Okay, don't see Doug. I know David Hogue is here to get his Paul Harris Fellow +1. So David, please come up and get it. We really appreciate your support. And I also know that Mark Woodbury is not here to get his Paul Harris Fellow +1. And as I've said in several of my presentations, we love acronyms in the Rotary. So next, getting their Paul Harris Fellow +2 award is our PPEN. He's our PPE chair, and he's an OTR squared. Aaron Jacobs. And now I'll turn the program over to District Governor, and please welcome him, District Governor Greg Saab.
Thank you, Bill. And first of all, my most heartfelt congratulations to the York Club and to President Jackie for a fabulous year this year. Thank you. Paul, well, I want to start with a Paul Harris Fellow +7 award to a fellow Paul Harris Society member, Bill Hartman. Bill, thank you. Paul Harris Society members agree to provide annual financial support to the Rotary Foundation and also to support the foundation by sharing the impact that the foundation has with fellow Rotarians and with the general public. The Rotary Foundation truly is the crown jewel of Rotary. Our foundation is the only charity in the world where the projects it funds are conceived, planned, and executed by its donors. It's also the only charity in the world that returns 50% of those contributions back to its donors to fund local projects. That's where the money comes from for district club grants. Fellow Rotarians, I would like you to stand and recognize the district's newest Paul Harris Society member, John Eister. Thank you very much for as I said, a great year. The York Club makes people like me look like heroes. So we appreciate that. And keep doing what you're doing here in York. You are doing a tremendous job. Thank you.
Congratulations, all of our Paul Harris Fellow, and especially John, congratulations on becoming a member of the society. So I'm a little bit blue because this is the very final time in my year that I'll have the opportunity to present past President Mike Summers, mi amore, my best friend, my confidant. It's been a great year. I've loved introducing you. And now with pleasure, Mike Summers will introduce our program.
We are running a little tight on time, so I hope you will indulge our speaker and stay maybe a few extra minutes. I would really appreciate that. I also want to take just 2 seconds and everybody on 3 wish President Jackie a happy birthday from yesterday. So on 3, just say happy birthday, Jackie, President Jackie. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday, President Jackie. See, it's better than singing to her. Wouldn't want me doing that. All right, on to our speaker. Our speaker has had a unique journey in becoming the leader of one of York County's longstanding businesses, Wolfgang Confectioners. I had the pleasure to travel down to Loganville to meet Sam Miller, the president and COO of Wolfgang, and was terribly impressed with the operations, But I was even more compelled by his story and the narrative of turning the company away from destruction to a thriving business. Sam is a York County native and a regionally educated at West York Area High School, Dickinson College, where he played collegiate football and men's volleyball while earning a degree in international business and management, and ultimately completing an MBA at York College. After graduation from Dickinson, Sam came back to York, where he started a career in the corporate marketing departments at Gladfelder Paper, focusing on rebranding. Later, Sam also saw a great opportunity with Anstat Communications in Emmonsville, serving as the COO and Vice President of Operations. Over the 6 years at Anstat, he had the opportunity to help transform that organization from a traditional printer into a marketing, print, and fulfillment company. In January of 2016, Sam started a new venture at Wolfgang Candy Company, now known as Wolfgang Confectioners, as the COO, helping to refocus the company and move it forward from some significant challenges, primarily bankruptcy in 2012. Sam's presentation today will focus on the history of the organization up to the strategic shift of the business model to include building a new vision and culture, along with redirecting the future of the business. Wolfgang Confectioners has been known as a 95-year-old startup, and Sam is the latest entrepreneur to lead this great company into the next iteration of success. Fellow Rotarians and guests, please warmly welcome the President and COO of Wolfgang Confectioners, Sam Miller.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. Excuse me, just a little bit of water. So the way I like to do these is a little informal. I like to have a little class participation, a couple hand raises throughout, and then really just tell you the story about Wolfgang and try to just kind of walk along with you. And then Mike also asked if I could weave in a little bit about how I got to Wolfgang and how that happened. So if you can just kind of play along, I like to we'll just kind of work through it, and then we'll get to the end and have questions. I've been instructed I'm on a tight timeline. And then I also found out late in the game that it's best to have presentations from Lynn said it's best to have presentations that have lots of pictures and little words. So unfortunately, I got that advice too late. So there's going to be some words on the screen, a few pictures, but mostly words, if you don't mind. So before we get into it, whenever the note goes out that the candy man is showing up to give the presentation, typically the question becomes, if I can get it to fly. I can't. Can you hear me now? There we go. Which Willy Wonka am I? Am I Gene Wilder Willy Wonka or Johnny Depp Willy Wonka? And so I always like to start with this question: is do we have any Johnny Depp Willy Wonka fans in the organization in the room here today? All right, how many Gene Wilder ones out there we got? Yeah, that's what I thought. It kind of a no contest. Now I start with that because it's fun and we talk about Willy Wonka, and frankly, I would have loved to had Oompa Loompas over the last 2 years through the labor crisis of COVID. It would have been really helpful for us, but it wasn't the case. But anyways, the reason is that because when I start to talk about Wolfgang, we think of locally here again about where we were, and then I want to talk about where we're going. So the next one, before we get into that, we already touched base on this. That's my crew, that's my family. But Mike already hit on it. I'm a York boy, went to West York, Dickinson College, and then York College. But really, primarily what I want to tie into today is the piece about what I wanted to do. And ultimately what it was to run a business. I'm a relationship guy. I like to have relationships. I thought that small business was really something that I was interested in because I could build relationships, and that was important to me. And so not that large corporations aren't good. That's not it. It's just for me, something on a small business level made a lot of sense. Excuse me. So the journey to Wolfgang became, as you mentioned, I was at Anstat up in Amicsville, PA as a COO. I had been connected to Wolfgang through that time. In July of 15, I had a friend reach out and say, hey, can you come run my business? I'm not a leader. I'm not a business. I'm an entrepreneur kind of guy. I want to step out, but you have the background. And so talked about it with my wife. We agreed. So I started at another company, actually as the president CEO in July of 2015. From that, over the next 4 months, what I quickly learned and what we both quickly learned was that how important alignment is with ownership and values are with ownership. And those two, and the business philosophies, and those three things didn't align with me and that owner as we started to figure things out over the next 4 months. And so it came around Thanksgiving in 2015. And at that time, we sat down and said, this isn't working out. Business can't have two leaders. And so one of us has to go. And obviously, ultimately, it was me because I wasn't the owner of the business. And so Thanksgiving time of 15, I'm unemployed. Wife stays at home, kids, trying to find a job, trying to go back and talk a little bit to Anstat about, is that open? That was closed. So now I had to go out. So I go out and I reach back out to Wolfgang, a couple members there, and I sit down with them and they say, hey, good to talk to you, Sam, but we really don't have anything available for you. We've been kind of struggling ourselves. However, if you want to come to Wolfgang and work in the warehouse part-time and make minimum wage, we're happy to have you. And so I took heed of that and I went home and I talked to my wife and I told her the story and she said, I don't care what you do, you're just not staying here all day. So I suggest you go do that. So in her wisdom, that's what I did. And so in January 2nd of 2016, I actually started Wolfgang in the warehouse, overseeing fundraising, making minimum wage part-time. I'm gonna come back to that in a second because I want to transition here to the history a little bit. So again, class participation time. How many here have bought, eaten, or sold Wolfgang candy in their lifetime? Okay. How many have not? It's probably the easier one. Okay. So for the nodders, Wolfgang this year is, if I can get two more. Wolfgang this year is 101 years old. Mike talked about it in his little lead in. I talk about it a lot where we end up being a 95-year-old startup, as we joke when we turn that corner, but we still actually make candy in great grandma Mima May's house up in North York, where we operate right now. But when they started the business in 1921, it really started out as a fundraising business for churches, then transitioned into schools. And that's kind of how everybody in this room raised their hand because at some point in a fundraising point, they bought it, ate it, sold it. Now, real quick, fast forward, 2010 rolls around. What we call the Healthy Choice Eating Initiatives comes through the schools and basically says, you can't put candy in your vending machines and we don't want them in your PTOs and PTAs because we're trying to minimize childhood obesity. That was great for that. What happened with Wolfgang was because of the fundraising piece, that actually decimated their sales essentially overnight, kind of stroke of a pen, 50% of sales were gone. And so that created this new dynamic for the business of where they wanted to go, what they wanted to do at that time. And so it went into bankruptcy in 2012 when it was purchased out of bankruptcy by the Stillman Family Partnership out of Lancaster. Now, just because they're out of Lancaster doesn't mean they're bad people, everybody. Come on. We can cross the river. It's okay. I promise. The fantastic family, they believe in what we believe in, and they've been very supportive as we went forward. But they bought it out of bankruptcy. When they bought it out of bankruptcy, we still did three things. We focused on fundraising. Then second was retail. We would sell Wolfgang candy to Costco, Walgreens, Target, wherever it happens to go. And then third is contract manufacturing. And contract manufacturing essentially is we take somebody else's recipe, we make their candy, we put it in a bag for them in their box, and then sell it back to them as a finished good. Then they sell it off to their customers. Has nothing to do with Wolfgang. Okay. They did that. They focused on that from 2012, 13, 14, and 15. And the way that I say it is that we did it okay. We did all three business units okay, but not great. None of them great. And so we were a small business at the time, and we really didn't have any kind of direction moving forward outside of those three business units. So fast forward back to me. So January, I'm there, I'm working in a warehouse. February rolls around. The person I report to is Mike Stillman, who's the oldest son of the Stillman family. He lives in Colorado. The business actually releases a job for COO of Wolfgang. Mike happened to be in town. He had no idea I was even in the facility. He didn't even know I was working there doing anything. So it gets posted. I apply, and he calls me. He says, "Hey, I see you applied, that you're here." I said, "Yes, that's great." We sit down, and he says, "Hey, here's the situation. We put this out for COO. but we were just talking about also potentially liquidating the company because we can't just make it go. And so he said, I don't know where you're at. And I said, well, I'm in your warehouse. I don't have a whole lot to do. And so we had a good talk about it and then said, okay, let's try it and let's see where we can go. And so this is when the change starts happening. I end up becoming a full-time Wolfgang employee and in February of 16 as the COO. Now starts what happened is that we have to assess. So just kind of back to the basics, SWOT analysis and research, right? So talk to all our vendors, all our customers, all our employees. What did we have? What didn't we have? And what did we need to do? And so what we ended up doing was saying we need to be focused on something. And if we're going to be great, let's be great at one thing and put all our energies in it and put all the other distractions aside. And so as we went to we had a board meeting in April of that year and had this conversation. And you know, I joked around that I say it's not my money, it's their money. But if it was me, I think that we need to go where there is demand and walk away from where there's not. And so we basically had contract manufacturers calling us all the time where we had these struggled on these other ones. And so we ended up actually deciding that day to go 100% into co-man and walk away from the Wolfgang brand as a fundraiser and the Wolfgang brand as retail and say, this is what we're going to be. So this is why when we say the 95-year-old startup, this is what changes it, because we had a little bit of experience, but we didn't have the direction we wanted. At the same time, we rebranded. Wolfgang Candy Company makes you think of a little corner store or lollipop fundraising. We had to talk and act and look like we knew what we were doing. At the same time, we had an ability, and it was, I put it up there, but we had the opportunity, to purchase the facility in Loganville, which you can actually see from 83 as you go down there. So what I want to really touch base on, I kind of led into that long. I know I'm watching the clock here, but really for me and for this group, when I see like on the language, the literature that you guys have is a lot of serve, a lot of people, a lot of care. And that's what I wanted to kind of tie in today for us. So when we started Wolfgang, we talked about this new direction and what do we want to be and how do we want to be and what should we be and be. And so basically our values became out to be Wolfgang, which is be willing, be positive, be consistent, be detailed, and be humble. And if you're those 5 things, that was good news, you got to stay. And if you're not, that's okay. It's just not for us. And we're happy for you to go work for our competitor down the street. We happily help you out, but you have to look at humble and say customer, coworker, and company before self, which I see a lot on the Rotarian literature as we talk about it, but it's the service of others first, and then you're second. And if we can do that, then we have a business that can actually grow. The second piece of that is when we rebranded, we created a new mission statement. And so I wrote this mission statement, a couple paragraphs long. I sent it to my friend, Bill Yanovich over here. And he called me up and he said, Sam, your literature genius here is amazing in how you wrote this, except I fell asleep halfway through reading it. And he said, you might want to consider shortening it up. And I said, oh, okay, well, we can do that. And he said, well, the first line you say, make candy. The second line you say, bless lives. And so our mission statement turned into make candy, bless lives. And so what that connected for us, for me personally, was the ability to have a business that goes out with profit and purpose. And you have to blend those two things together in the world we live in and in the communities we live in to be able to push both forward. So it's giving the people that work for us the ability to see there's something greater than just a profit or greater than just putting money for our owners going forward. So the other piece of that is it's really neat. I just wanted to touch real quick base on it. 2.5 years ago, the way that we make candy is the way that we operate, right? The way that we bless lives is we actually started a 501c3 about 2.5 years ago that sits outside of Wolfgang. It's called Be Blessed by Wolfgang, and it has its own board and it has its own committee members, and it generates funds primarily through the management team at Wolfgang. So it direct deducts out of our payroll and it goes right into that fund. And then that fund is actually matched by the ownership. So we're able to basically flip it over and make funding travel that way. Then that group is focused on 2 things. One is community. So the people that we partner with, LifePath, Penmar, LIU, partnerships that we have in this community, financially that we give or otherwise. And then the second is what I call crisis urgent issues in life. And so it's people in our sphere who we interact with. So there's some associates that work for us and then also others just outside of that. But it's a lot of, over the years, we've given to car accidents, COVID, cancer situations, domestic abuse situations, heat that's turned off, things that happen spontaneously in our minds, but that are crisis in the associates that work for us lives, and then other people around us. And so the idea is that we're blessing people's lives through that. Now, when I say that, it's not that we're trying to, and don't take this the wrong way, but this is not about putting it on a big check, calling a Central Penn Business Journal and getting our paper in a journal. That's not what it's about. It's simply about doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And that's what we want to do going forward. So I wanted to take a minute to talk about that. I'm going to blow through this one. When we look at our employees, we look at it and everybody has a body, mind, and soul. That's just what we believe. However you want to look at that. And our soul piece in the diagram is all that be blessed we talk about. Do good things because it's the right thing to do. Health and Wellness Committee is all focused on physical health and mental health, giving us new opportunities to learn about exercise or eating right, etc. And then last is personal development. Again, going to this group here, which might be of interest. Clearly, we all get trained at some point, whether it's right training or wrong training in our business. And so what we've created was a home base website called wolfgangu.com for Wolfgang University. And we drive all our training there, which is great. So you can learn about chocolate. However, holistically, what we're trying to do is take that one step forward for our employees. So we actually have on there self-awareness training, budget, personal finance training. You can go on wolfgangu.com today and get your GED if that's something that you wish to do at our organization. And so we're looking outside of that to be able to drive new opportunities for our employees on their personal development, not just in work, but at home. And we believe if we can get that balanced more for them, they'll be a better person at home, they'll be a better person at work, and we'll be able to move the organization forward a little better. So kind of bringing that to fruition here, and this is kind of the final piece for me, is I like to talk about obviously the story of Wolfgang, a little bit about me, how I got there, and kind of we talked a little bit through there, but then also just give kudos to our team about what they've done over the last 6 years. And so we, just from an execution standpoint, we purchased, renovated, and put that new facility in Loganville. We installed 7 commercial grade manufacturing lines in North York. In our old facility, we could make approximately 250 pounds of chocolate covered pretzels an hour. Currently, we can make about 2,250 pounds of chocolate covered pretzels an hour in a bag and a box out the door. So we're adding a lot of lines, putting down there. In 2016, we did about 1.5 million pounds of candy up in North York. This last year, we did 23 million pounds of candy through the entire company. I would argue that probably is excess on the sweet side that we talked about a little earlier. Certainly, that's good things. There's a lot of good things in those small treats, which we're excited about. But that's a lot of moving parts, a lot of things actions that have to happen. Quality wise, we're real excited about it. Very few quality issues. I'm just going to blow by that. But the other one that's really important to us is in 2016, we only had 19 full-time equivalents, 19 people kind of all the time at Wolfgang, a lot of seasonal part-time. And as the business has grown this year, right now, we're right at 400 full-time equivalents over the course of the last 6 years, working 24/5, nonstop, running those lines down in Loganville. Last piece here on this part is just revenue-wise. We'd like to talk about that just in terms of what happens here. But we had $6.5 million in revenue in 2016. This last year, we just crossed the $80 million mark in revenue. And again, it's all scale. It's all about the ability to do it. But when you look at that list, to be able to we look at it as a 95-year-old startup, we were a whiteboard to be able to install lines and still produce and expand the building to a much larger facility. What it really took was a great team, right? We talk about it a lot, but it's just the truth that if you don't have the right ones, you might as well start over. And so we have the right ones. They believe in the mission statement. They believe in Be Wolfgang, and that's what we're grateful for. So if I left you with anything today, it is, again, it's that profit and purpose thing as we go into our work lives. We got to put those two things together to be able to continue to drive that purpose part forward. So for me, I tried to get it in by 1:05. I'm a couple minutes late, but I tried to hit all the high points. So if I have any time left, there's any questions I can have at it. Correct. That's interesting. We spent a lot of time on that and over the last few years. And I would say at different times, our leadership team has been too big because we wanted to bring everybody in. And then just recently, I actually had to skinny it back down again. So from the level standpoint, I have a leadership team that's 4. That's it. And I had one that was 7, 8. It was just too much to manage for us and the organization. So we have a primary leadership team, and then we have a management group that does kind of day to day across the facility, from supervisors to maintenance to QA and everybody purchasing and accounting groups inside of that. So it's been a journey for sure on the leadership side. And we've been able to find the right ones. Fortunately for us, I believe this wholeheartedly, we have very, very little turnover at Wolfgang on our leadership side. They believe in what we put on that board. And so therefore it's easy to be flexible and move and change to whatever the need of the business is. Yeah. So what was your greatest barrier? That's a good question. Yes, I can. What are the greatest 1 to 3 barriers from getting the company to where it was to where it is today? What I'm going to tell you is a little bit of the naivete that we didn't know was helpful to us. So we didn't know what we didn't know at the time. We were, like I said, this whiteboard. So it was just, we had something to get done, which was put the building up, get the candy made, and get going. Once that started, really the barriers, for us, honestly, clearly the staffing piece of all that has been a huge barrier for us. Out of the gate, because everybody knows Wolfgang, generally what people think is it's candy, it's fun, it's a clean white environment, which it is. But then they get on the end of the line, or they're on the line and 3,000 pounds an hour is coming off the end of the line. And you can think of Lucy and Ethel in the old, and it's the truth. It's actually times 10 is what that really looks like in reality. But I would say that's the first part. The second part is, I would say the barrier was just galvanizing the team together on a day-to-day basis. So what I mean by that, I think we can all appreciate that the last 2 years was, I call it managing chaos. That's all we did every day, was manage chaos. Prior to that, it was, how do we take people that maybe don't know about confections? I didn't know anything about confections until I got into this business. And then you learn it and take their skill set and then start to build that team. So for me, it was the barrier was continue to build a team and then know when the right time to hand off was. Hey, I can't do this anymore. Somebody else needs to do it, even though I'm white knuckling this thing to death, right? And so I would say those are probably the first two, is getting them and then just building that leadership team. Clearly, when you not clearly, but when you build a facility and put in all those lines, capital is always an issue, I'll say. And John just offered me a couple $1 million while I was sitting over here, so that might not be an issue anymore. So thanks, John, appreciate that. I'll sign the docs on the way out. Aaron.
Jackie promised us free peanut butter blossom.
So are there any other names, just out of curiosity? Does anybody remember any of the other names of the old candy? Pretzelettes, chocolate covered pretzels. There's peanut butter bears. There's cracker crowns, little oyster crackers covered in chocolate. It's a couple different ones that sold pretty well. Unfortunately, we haven't made any Wolfgang candy for 6 years now, and we closed the store down about 5 years ago in North York, although people still show up to it multiple times a week to look for candy. And I will admit that I had a lot of hate mail out of the gate. How stupid I was, and I'm an idiot, and how could you do this to me? I had a couple criers leave voicemails, and yeah, it was pretty interesting. So we don't have any of Wolfgang candy, but we did bring one. Celise over here in the blue will have a box of a piece of candy that we do make currently, that we've been able to scale from a small business to a much larger business for them and help our customers be able to grow on the way out the door if that's what you would like. Anything else? You good? Good.
Sam, there's no question why you have a great retention of your employees. When you have a leader like you, I can just bet it's a joy to come to work every day. Thank you, and much continued success to Wolfgang. It's a great story. And thank you, Bill, for introducing Sam to us. We really appreciate that. Sam has generously signed the bookplate of the book Skunk and Badger by Amy Timberlake, which we will present to McKinley Elementary School. I would be remiss if I didn't share with you that I share a birthday with none other than past president Dave Meckley. And so I think it's important on the count of three that we say happy birthday, past President Dave. 3, 2, 1. Happy birthday, past President Dave. It's a great day. First day of summer, longest day of the year. It's a good time. I would also be remiss if I didn't thank District Governor Greg Staub once again for joining us for the second time this year and congratulating you on an incredible year. There was a lot of growth this year in membership around the clubs, and it must have been very heartwarming for you to be a part of that. Thank you for your service and all that you've done for Rotary. And next week is the changing of the guard. You're going to want to be here. You're going to laugh. You're going to cry. You're going to want to see it again and again. I know it. I know it. So please make sure to be here as we recap the year and we also induct our new leadership. And in closing today, our quote is very sweet. It's by Rebecca Gober. Candy is nature's way of making up for Mondays. Rotarians and guests, I hope you have a great rest of your week. This meeting is adjourned.